Hi, my name's Jim. I own a company called Centerline Films, and we put together the Spirit Breakout video, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a behind the scenes because we've had lots of questions about how we did it, what the process was, what you did first, etc, etc. So I thought I'd talk you through a little bit of what we've done. Basically what's happened was Marcus from New Life Church and Jono from St T's got in touch. They'd had a chat about doing a collaborative piece with the churches in Lancaster and Morecambe and the surrounding area. They had an idea for doing it for Pentecost, and we're thinking about doing a song and getting worship leaders to sing along and kind of all appearing on screen together as you know, the church rather than individual churches. So I was well up for it. Jono and Marcus chose the song Spirit Breakout, and to make things easy we just bought a backing track and then approached the worship leaders with that. We bought the backing track and then Jono sent it out to the worship leaders. There are a few different versions of the backing track. So one was just the backing track with nothing else on it. The second was the backing track with a vocal lead line on it. And then the third was actually the backing track with Jono just giving directions through it as well. So that just meant that as people were listening to the track and singing along, they had a little bit of, okay, we're going into the chorus, we're going into the verse, just a bit of direction. We sent it out to the worship leaders via a group chat and just asked them to sing along to the track, and also if they felt led to, then to do a harmony line as well. We weren't sure how many would take it up. The response was really good when we were talking about it, but actually getting people to translate that into action isn't always the most productive. But actually the response was incredible. We had 32 worship leaders from 12 different churches in the area send us something back, and yeah, a real variety of people, of churches, and of styles of singing, and the melody lines and the harmony lines, all completely different. So what we didn't do was loads of pre-planning into it to say, you know, you sing this part, you're going to sing this part. We had no plan. We just wanted to get everything back, and then once we had it back we'd have a look at it. So the job then, once everything was sent through to me, was that I had to extract the audio. So some people have recorded the video and the audio separately, which is fantastic. The job then is to sync them, but we do that later on. But some people are just recorded on phones, totally fine. And actually we asked them to find a quiet place to film it in landscape, so that we had the full kind of widescreen aspect of the video. Yeah, film it somewhere quiet so you didn't have any background noise, and we had as clear audio as possible via your phone. So the job then was to extract the audio from their phone footage, and then to bring that into Logic here. And then the most time-consuming bit was probably the bit where you actually have to move everything in time with each other, and that was all done manually. So it was done by listening to the track, listening to the singer, and just kind of moving it around. So to make it clear, the singer was listening, so all the singers were listening to the track in earphones or headphones, whatever they had. So on the audio that was recorded there was no essence of the backing track. This meant that it was really clean audio, we didn't have any overlaps with the backing track. What makes it more difficult is you can't hear the backing track to sync everything. So it was a case of going through, listening to it alongside the track and just kind of positioning everything in the right place. So once we positioned everything, it turns out that we had 31 melody lines and 17 harmony lines. So they all sat on the timeline like this, an absolute mess of everything. And if you hit play, so you can hear everyone's in time. And it had the unique kind of intonation of everyone. So some people held the notes really long, some people were a bit shorter on them, and I really loved that. So the job then, once everything is in time with each other, is to actually go through and start picking out lead lines. So what we were very conscious of was representing all of the churches kind of roughly equally as much as possible. So some churches had 8 worship leaders representing them, some only had 1. So it was a case of trying to fit the sound to each other, and make sure that it kind of the song built and dropped and built where it needed to, but actually that everyone was kind of represented and had a part to play as well. So yeah, it was literally just a case of selecting one at a time, listening to it and thinking, yep, that line works. And then when it came later on in the song, so it starts off just kind of solos and then goes to a couple of duets, all singing the melody. As it builds, we started to bring in the harmony lines, and that was a case of listening to the melody line that I've chosen and picking a harmony that suited. So it was pretty complicated to try and balance it all, and there was a couple of changes, like harmony lines that didn't quite fit with the tone or the length that people were holding it. So took a bit of balancing, and then as the song goes on, we introduced more and more, so up to kind of 8 at a time, and then finishing with everyone on screen, all 32 worship leaders on screen at that point. So once the audio was kind of selected, we then had a bit of a play with kind of the dynamics of it, so putting compression, EQ on every channel. To do that, we used a bus system, so in the mix, rather than putting delays and reverbs on each individual channel, we sent them via a bus through to an auxiliary, and then just put the reverb onto that channel, and then on the individual channels you just tell it to give it a little bit of the bus channel. It means that it's much better processing wise for the computer. It's not trying to do 40 odd 50 odd channels of reverb. Actually it's just applying one channel to 50 different channels. I didn't start panning stuff at that point, because what I wanted to do was then see what it looked like to be able to pan people where they sat on screen. So if somebody appears on the left side of the screen, I wanted them to sound in your ears like they were on the left side of the mix. So I left everything kind of mono just down the middle at that point and did a rough export, and then imported that in with all the video files into Final Cut Pro, which is the video software. So taking all of the video files at that point that match up, I had to make sure that I named everything correctly and that it all matched, and I named it with their name and which church they were from and whether it was the lead line or the harmony line. This meant that I could just kind of match the audio to the video very easily without actually knowing everyone individually, because I don't know everyone that sent files in. I feel like I know them now. I saw their faces a lot and listened to them a lot. So yeah, so then the job was to kind of put, so where I'd cut the audio, it was then very simple to cut the video. So what I did was listen through to the track and made notes on individual lines. So where it says Spirit Breakout, who was singing that? Was it a lead line? Was it a part, harmony part? And so I had a couple of A4 sheets with all of the parts kind of written out. And then the job really was to bring everything into the video software and line it up again, make sure that everything kind of matched. And then it was just a case of chopping each individual kind of video part that matched the audio. Now when there's only one person on the screen, it's dead easy. They are that one person. As soon as you start adding more people in, it was then a case of, right, well, how do we frame this? How do we make this look aesthetically pleasing, but also where do they sit on the screen so that I can match the audio to that? So I then had a bit of play with different size frames, different layouts as well. Tried to keep it fairly simple. I didn't want it to become too busy, too messy, that draws your eye away from what's going on, but actually that is clean cut and was kind of worked well. So then started positioning people. So once I had, say there were 4 people on screen, my job then was to crop them into their frames, which I made in Photoshop. Just very simple, transparent background with some a thin white line around them, and then kind of position them into place and crop in the video file so that there was no overlap in between. And then once I'd got to the end of that, it was then a case of going back to the audio and looking at where they appear on screen. So on one of my screens I'd have the video software and see where they actually sit on screen, and on the other screen I'd have the audio and looking at the mix, and actually starting to pan people left or right depending upon whether they've appeared on the left side or the right side of the screen. What that does really is separates the audio in your ears as well. So if everyone's straight down the middle and not panned, then actually it's just a bit of a noise that you hear in both ears. As soon as you start separating them left and right, you start to hear the difference across the kind of the stereo feed, and it actually separates the voices out really nicely, so you can identify voices, which works really well. Yeah, and then it was a case of kind of thinking about the cinematography of it. So how are we introducing it? What's the wording that's going beforehand? What's the message that we wanted to do? We didn't just want it to be a project that was nice, but actually had a meaning behind it. That was the whole point of doing this at Pentecost. You know, when the church was born, the Holy Spirit kind of came into that place that you can read about in Acts, and we wanted to kind of celebrate the birth of the church as one, you know, one voice in a sense. So yeah, we put some wording together. Me, Jono and Marcus agreed on the wording that was going out. We sent out a couple of drafts, had a bit of back and forward with little tweaks. I've managed roughly to cover all of the bases in terms of making sure the churches had the right exposure, and then we decided not to kind of identify who was from which church. It was, again, it's that sense of one voice and being able to sing with one voice, one church, and then at the end obviously we've put that there were 12 different churches involved, and a massive thanks to all of them. So yeah, the project worked really well. Really happy with the outcome. To date, about 4 days it's been out, and it's had 4,500 views on Facebook and a couple of hundred on YouTube, which is just fantastic. People have been sharing, and it's been really encouraging, so that's great. And it was really nice to work with other worship leaders in the area as well. Really amazing to see the talented individuals that we've got in this area. So it was an absolute pleasure, and I hope that it kind of brought a bit of joy into people's Sundays on Pentecost as well, as we celebrate the birth of the church. So yeah, I'd love to know if there's any questions, anything that I haven't covered in this. Please just drop me a message underneath or a comment, and I'll endeavour to get back to you. I don't want to go too technical, but you know, a bit of video software that's capable of different layers, and an audio bit of software that again is capable of multi-layers, means that anyone can do this sort of thing. It's just time and patience to put it all together and make sure it fits. But yeah, if you've got any questions at all, please drop me a line, that'd be awesome. Cheers guys, hope you're all well.